let's get straight into this Jubilee video. So apparently, for whatever reason, we've decided today to listen to what anti-vaxxers have to say. So, let's be clear before we watch this video. Anti-vax science has about as much respect, and should be given as much respect, as people who think the sky is purple. The idea that it gives kids autism or any of these other horrible things, besides a very, very few set circumstances when it comes to bad reactions. The idea that you should be denying your kids vaccinations due to autism or any of these other bogus reasons is hogwash. And so we are watching this because I want to learn more about anti-vax arguments, or I guess pro-vax arguments, and see what the other side of the, I don't know, brain cell thinks about vaccinations. Anti-vax is to medicine what eating crayons is to gourmet food. That's a good point. And you know what, chat? I'll even put you on screen today. I'll allow you to see yourself today. I'll be a nice fellow.
Before we start this video, we just want to acknowledge that this is obviously a very sensitive topic, especially coming out of what's been an incredibly difficult year battling the coronavirus pandemic. But as vaccines are starting to roll out, this is also a very real and current conversation that we're seeing happen within our communities and all around the country. So our goal with this video was to just earnestly portray various perspectives that we were hearing. And
I hope they do like a little disclaimer. Jason here says a little disclaimer like, hey, please get a vaccine. Please say it. Come on, Jason.
Not necessarily that we condone these perspectives, but to understand why people are feeling the way they might be. As always, please seek out experts as you're making your own decisions.
There it is.
And above all else.
Well, I understand why you didn't, though. As somebody who's had to organize debates with topics that are quite frivolous, to say the least, you do your best to tell people to do their own research, get expert opinions, all that. But if you ever say, don't believe the nonsense you're about to hear, then how are you going to get all the nonsense onto your show, right?
We want to encourage you to see each other's humanity and feel more empathy. Enjoy the video.
They were tested for the coronavirus, but that's a hoax. How can you get tested for a hoax? That's bull. That's imbecilic.
Over the past year, I've been integrally involved in treating COVID-19 patients in the ICU as I'm a critical care physician.
Oh no!
I've never seen a disease.
They're getting doctors who have held people in their arms as they died from COVID, away from all family, to talk to people who are gonna tell them like, you know, if you just eat more vegetables.
Like this in my 20 years of experience. This virus kills you slowly, methodically, and without mercy.
I'm a registered nurse, and I think the COVID vaccine is very important because it prevents infection, and not just for us and for our families.
We've all been at home for the better part of a year, and we have to make some tough decisions about our health and how we're going to interact with each other in the future.
Why am I skeptical? Well, there's been a lot of misinformation. This COVID thing has been very political. I'm not...
Okay, so let me be clear. Yes. Now, of course it's political. I like his hair, but of course it's political. Of course it's political. What does that even mean? When people say, oh my gosh, I can't believe how political it is, I never understand what that means. I never understand. Yes, it's political. It's a political issue. It's a political issue. Of course it's political. What does that even... I never understood that perspective. Yes, it is political. The same way that... you know what? Okay, let's do a scenario. Let's role play, everybody. Hey, everybody, thanks for all the gift, Ocean and Tabby. Thanks for the gifted subs. I'm sorry notification isn't sounding. I forgot to turn those back on. But let's do a scenario quick, okay? Let's do something. Okay? Let's do something quick. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Guys, it seems that the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor. This is, wait, no. Let me do it worse. 1 second. Oh no, my camera's breaking down. Okay, give me a second here. Come on, there has to be one. There we go. Everybody, the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, and it's horrible. We need to respond to the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor. This crisis that has hit our shores. Well, good sir, I don't really like how you have politicized this crisis. You are taking the bodies of Pearl Harbor are not even cold yet, and you're using this crisis to push your political agenda, and I hate that. How dare you do this? It's a disservice to the victims that were killed at Pearl Harbor to just jump so quickly to this. What we need to do is pray for the victims of this horrible attack and stop politicizing Japanese bombing raids on American troops. Well, I never considered about in this way before. I guess we'll do literally jack shit in response to this crisis. And scene. It makes no sense. I'm sorry. Look, I understand like the idea, but when you realize that yes, crises are inherently political, like how you respond to a pandemic, how you respond to war, how you respond to terror attacks, how you respond to poverty, these are all issues that require political solutions. So yes, it is political. I would expect nothing less.
Anti-vaccination. I'm just more skeptical about the COVID vaccination.
I feel like it's not safe yet. There hasn't been enough testing done on this vaccine, and I don't think that it's a one-size-fits-all.
I'm not for the COVID vaccine because the evidence doesn't add up to that being necessary in order to survive. There's only been one side of the story told.
Well, I mean, like, this is like saying, like, seatbelts aren't necessary to survive. Penicillin isn't necessary to survive. Filtered water isn't necessarily necessary to survive. A lot of things aren't necessary to survive, but greatly increase your chances and stop, say, over 500,000 Americans dying.
And it's been a side of death and sadness and depression. And I don't believe that's the whole truth.
Hi,
Okay, so here's the easy solution here. Okay, look on which side is full of doctors and which side is full of people who went to some really weird Reddit threads, okay? I think I'm probably going to side with the doctors, whichever side that ends up being on. Let's figure that out quickly.
my name is Jacqueline. I'm a registered nurse for 2 years, and I'm excited to be here and extremely nervous.
My name is Thomas Yadigar. I'm a critical care physician, and I supervise a team of 20 physicians. And on a normal day, we take care of about 120 patients in the hospital and about 40 to 50 patients in the ICU.
Hi, my name is Kelly. I am a teacher. I've been teaching for 16 years, and I'm just very excited to be here.
Hi,
Okay, so 2 doctors and an educational official. So one of them, on the other side, of course, one of them is going to be a heart surgeon, immunologist, probably a dentist. I mean, to make it 2v2, of course. These are going to be people whose experience is extremely relevant, of course.
My name's Siaka Massaquoi, and just an individual that loves this life and wants to just see the best for everybody in it.
Oh, okay. Loves this life is some good background experience, I guess. I guess if you love life, then you don't want to die.
Hello, my name is Percy. I'm an actor and podcaster, and I'm just grateful.
Oh, podcaster. Okay, guys, he's an expert. Don't worry, guys. He's one of us. We're good. We're good. Okay. This guy's on point.
To be here.
Hi, my name is Erica, and I am a stay-at-home mom. I have a 4-year-old. I'm definitely not here to change anyone's mind, but just to share my own personal experience and my views on things.
Okay, so if you're keeping count at home, okay, for everybody keeping count, the current matchup is on one side we have 2 doctors and a teacher. On the other side we have a dude who loves life, a stay-at-home mom, and a podcaster. These 3 could have just came in and said, hello, we come from the school of Wikipedia, and that would have been enough, okay?
Can I please have my pro-COVID vaccine folks on the left and my skeptics on the right?
What a surprise. The doctors are pro-vaccine.
Prompt is COVID-19 scares me. Please come forward if you agree with the statement.
Yeah, so for me, I have asthma. I was born with it, which is why I keep myself isolated. I just don't want to put myself in a position where I got to call my mom and say, hey, come to California. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, for me, COVID with family members, friends who have gotten sick, friends who have passed away. I'm just very concerned for my parents, my aunts, my cousins, everybody,
Yeah.
so including myself.
Right.
I actually work with COVID patients since the
So I was raised by my grandfather, right? And he has gone through a lot of surgeries lately. He's not very strong at the moment. He's going through a lot of surgeries and he's lost a lot of weight. And I mean, we've basically had to come to a conclusion with the fact that if he caught COVID, the dude would like kick the bucket. Like he's in not great shape to be tackling such a thing. And my father also has like spots in his lungs. So that would also be like a huge issue for him. Like there's a lot of people who would really be brutally impacted if we did not invest the time and resources that we did to get this vaccine out the door. And we don't get this vaccine out to the people who need it. So when we talk about pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine, what ultimately ends up being is pro-medical science and pro getting the resources into people's arms that will save lives, and the other side is either hardcore libertarianism or just straight up nonsense, to be completely honest. It's a global warming position, exactly.
the very beginning. So I'm also scared that I can contact from my patients and I can give it to my parents.
I think the thing that scares me most about COVID is that it is so unpredictable.
Yeah.
A year ago when this started, the first patient in LA County came to our hospital. 13 people that were on a ski trip in Italy. And when I walked into the room to talk to him about it, what he told me kind of made the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Yeah.
7 of them ended up getting hospitalized. 2 of them were on a respirator, were on blood pressure medicines, on ECMO, fighting for their lives. And these are people in their 40s, 50s, 60s. That right off the bat caused me to call all my relatives and tell them, stay the hell home, be careful, hunker down. Despite being in cameras, I'm actually intensely private. This is not something that I'm comfortable with. But I started posting things on Facebook to alert people to the threats of what was coming our way, because this is no ordinary virus.
Okay, can we please have our disagreeers come and join us?
I thought I was going to be the
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm pro-COVID.
only one.
I guess I would say it doesn't scare me in the same manner as I've heard from you guys, because I had it. I got it back in January before it was cool.
Let me move away.
Yeah, I'm good now, right? My 74-year-old mom who came to visit had it, my 6-year-old godson, my 3-year-old godson, my 40-year-old best friend, 32-year-old roommate. The kids went through like this. My mom, 11 days. It was weird for her, but she's healthy as hell. You know, and that's my own personal story, and then I have not changed my lifestyle since this thing started.
Yo, I rolled the dice and our family was really lucky, so must not be like a real like issue thing, you know? You know? Like the thing is, I got in like 3 car crashes and I'm still kicking. So car crashes might not, it seems like not a real issue. You know what I'm saying, man? And here's like my grandmother got in a car crash. She's still alive. I mean, this is some hardcore statistical evidence we're getting here.
If anything, I've gone out more.
We need
I've been going to
seatbelts.
rallies since June, and I've been around multiple people of all ages, consistently hung out with every Saturday for 6-7 months. Nothing. But yet, I'm only being told one side of the story.
Well, for me, it's not really a fear because I grew up undocumented. So there's a lot of other things that I grew up fearing, cops being one of those. And COVID, it got my grandmother, it got my aunt, my uncle. My aunt and uncle did pass away in Mexico. It got a handful of my friends. But to say that I'm afraid of it and to like change my life and stay home and then feed that to my 4-year-old, that's not the way that I have chosen to live, because I do agree that fear in itself can cause so much stress. It can lower your immune system, and it can just put your mind in such a state of panic and trauma that I feel like that in itself can be so much more detrimental in the long run.
Okay, you don't need to live in fear to take proper safety precautions, and you don't need to terrify your children to inform them about like an actual crisis. For example, like what if I was just like, I saw my kid playing in the street, cars whizzing, a lot of car analogies today, cars whizzing by. And I'm like, I could warn the kid about all these cars whizzing by, but that might, maybe that'll put some fear into them. You could simply just say, hey, if you don't do that, then some bad things might happen. You might get hurt, you might get injured, etc., etc. Or, of course, you could do the whole, like, you're gonna die, but, yeah, you could do it in a responsible way that doesn't terrify your children. You don't need to, like, dress up in, like, a COVID mask, right? Like, dress up as, like, a fake COVID, like, particle or whatever it is, right? And walk up to them in the night and shake them in the bed and go, ooga booga, I'm COVID, I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna kill you if you don't wear a mask! You don't need to do that. You can just be like, hey, wear a mask, it's safer, and it'll help more people. Simple as that.
I think that's my big issue with it, because I just, after this thing, then what? When we're too afraid to come up to strangers.
Yeah.
Like, how are we supposed to get through
I
our
think
stuff?
you should be aware. I don't think it's ever good to, to cause mass fear on the population. But I think, knowledge is power.
Yep.
So you have to be able to understand what's going on around you and adapt around you.
What I've had to do with my students is to make them aware of it being okay. Have you gone outside today? Did you go get some fresh air? Okay, let's do some exercise. Do a plank competition in the house, at least something that's active, because they are so recluse. And that's the part that is concerning.
Yeah, within the first few weeks, one of my doctors asked me to see a patient. She'd been into the emergency room 3 times within a week. She was convinced she had COVID. And she had some of the symptoms. She had chest tightness, shortness of breath. And they were going to do a 4th test. Her 3 previous ones were all negative. So I walked in, and I'm like, do you have any kids? She's like, yeah, I have a 10-month-old, but he's fine, don't worry about him. I'm like, what do you mean he's fine, don't worry about him? She's like, I use Clorox. I just make sure that this virus doesn't come anywhere around. I'm like, what about with your groceries? She's like, my groceries, I use bleach on them. Oh, no. I told her, I'm like, I looked at your CAT scan, you don't have COVID, but you have a chemical pneumonitis.
Yes.
From all this bleach, from all these chemicals that you have introduced, you just put yourself in harm. And I'm like, go home, do what you normally do in terms of
water
cleaning.
on some stuff.
Wash your hands. Some of the stuff that was coming out in the first few weeks, it lingers in the air for 3 hours. It lasts on surfaces for 3 days. Yeah. And I'm looking at the TV and I'm telling my wife, I'm like, this is nonsense.
Yeah.
What? This is a respiratory virus.
I just feel like it has been blown to a proportion that it doesn't need to be. Yes, be safe, be cautious, but you don't have to run around, bleaching your vegetables. Like, what is that doing? I would just say, like, take it seriously. Don't wait until your mom or your grandmother's in the hospital to say, oh.
Well, the thing is, you can't say that you're taking it seriously while also being like anti-vax, right? That doesn't make any sense to me. You could look, if you guys were in here like, hey man, I'm not living in fear, I'm not doing that. But you know what? I'm wearing a mask, taking the vaccine, doing what I can to be safe. That would be the like way to not live in fear. But just because you don't want to live in fear doesn't mean you need to disregard all safety precautions and live it on the edge. You know what I mean? You can just not live in, you can not live in fear and act like a responsible human being, right? Like for example, like if I was, like what's a good example I could use for this? For example, right? Like, I think people should practice sexual health, like use condoms, stuff like that, use contraceptives, right? Now, I'm not terrified of HIV, right? I don't live my life scared that one day I'm gonna catch the virus and my life's gonna be over and then I will be killed by the flu. Like, that's not how I live my life. I don't live in constant fear of AIDS and HIV. But you know what I do? I still practice proper sexual health because it's a responsible thing to do. You don't need to be terrified to do proper safety precautions. It's as simple as that. So you don't need to live on the edge like a wild man to prove that you're not scared of it.
Oh, take COVID seriously, because we've been seeing that all year and it's not getting us nowhere.
Everyone should get a COVID-19 vaccine. Okay, come forward if you disagree.
Shot the moon.
I don't think everybody should get it because people who are allergic to vaccines obviously shouldn't get the vaccine, but I feel like I can see how much COVID can affect family members, and I see like my grandma actually passed away with COVID. She was in a nursing home, that's how she got it. I feel like herd immunity, I think it could give us back to normal.
The thing is, right? The amount of the population that doesn't need to take the vaccine is so small that the amount of time that people dedicate to saying you shouldn't take the vaccine is disproportionate to the amount of people who actually don't need to take the vaccine. And we should be spending much more time actually messaging about the need for people to take the vaccine, despite very rare circumstances. So, I mean, on a technicality, yes, but the messaging we should be giving is the vast majority of people should take the vaccine. If the reasons you should is because of you have a legitimate like allergic reaction, and it seems from the people that they're talking to right now, it doesn't seem to be like an allergic reaction. When you say you're anti-vaccine, that doesn't mean you're saying, oh, I have an allergic reaction and myself I don't take the vaccine. You're saying you've got some like ideological, or you don't believe it's legit, or you think it's gonna kill you, or it's gonna give you AIDS, or whatever conspiracy theorist nonsense. So there's a difference between an individual not being able to take it due to allergic reactions, and that's where herd immunity steps in, and an individual not wanting to take it because they think, oh, I'm just built different. COVID don't hit me like that, or oh, I don't want to do it for some stupid ideological reason. So the vast majority of the time, we should be messaging for people to take the vaccine. And the amount of time we are spending talking about the people who don't need to take it because of medical reasons is so disproportionate due to all this anti-masker nonsense and anti-vaxxer nonsense.
Normal life.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting a vaccine is incredibly individual choice.
Right.
So we all have our own medical history. We all have our own medical experiences, how we reacted to vaccines. That being said, I don't think at this point we're going to eradicate COVID-19 with a vaccine. But that doesn't mean that vaccine's not critically important. And the people who should be getting it, they should get the vaccine. I myself did get the vaccine.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all because, again, everyone's body is so different that what might work for you might kill me and vice versa. And so for me, I feel like that's
but do you know that? Like, for what I'm waiting for you to say that you know you're allergic. Okay, I'm waiting for you to say that. If you're not, then you should be taking the vaccine, and not doing it is extremely, extremely, extremely stupid.
a risk that I'm willing to take.
It's not a risk you're willing to take, but do you even know? The risk you're taking for not taking the vaccine is much greater than the chance you're going to have an allergic reaction.
Actually developed allergies due to vaccines as a kid. And
there you go. See that? You should have led with that.
I would break out in hives. It would last, anywhere between 3 days to like 2 weeks. And the doctors throughout like 20 years of my life could never figure it out. It definitely does something to you mentally when you go into an ER and you're in this desperate need for help, and they would just kind of look at me and go like, okay, well, we'll just give you Benadryl and you can go home. It wasn't until I became an adult. I worked for several families as a babysitter, and they all happened to be physicians. And some of them talked to me about vaccine injuries. It clicked, because the second that I started making my own medical decisions, that's when all of the side effects just kind of went away.
That's unfortunate because you didn't get the care that you should have gotten. Like, I didn't hear or know about vaccine injury until I started really working in health care and public health. And I have friends who have autoimmune issues, and they.
The sad reality is that it's hard when people say stories about allergies to vaccines. Due to the anti-vaxxer movement, there's a lot of people who go to doctors and they'll tell other people about certain doctors that if you go there and tell them about how you are allergic to vaccines, they won't do any of the checks, they won't do any of the stuff. They'll just believe at face value, take your word at it, boom, and give you that permission slip to not take vaccines. And due to that, there's a lot of people who are claiming to be allergic to vaccines who are really not allergic to vaccines. And so I'm not trying to discredit this person's lived experience. I'm just saying it puts me in a position due to the amount of medical malpractice, as somebody brought up the word in chat, that's going on. It puts me in a weird position on, like, I don't know who to believe.
They have big allergic reactions to certain things, and so they have a huge concern about, of course, this vaccine, COVID vaccine, because, what could happen.
The one thing I would ask you though, Erica, is because you have had family members that died.
Yeah.
So you would trust getting the disease versus the vaccine? The vaccine scares you that much that you would rather get the...
Like, let's say if you had COVID, like, I would feel so much more comfortable shaking your hand and getting COVID through you and build the antibodies for it than I would to trust the vaccine.
Okay, see, that's the nonsense, and that's why I find it very hard to believe people and a lot of, oh my gosh. See, that's just nonsense. That's just nonsense. You know what? Someone should just give me cancer, and then I'll build the antibodies again. Oh, no, I'm dead. Okay, well, there you go. The thing is, you could build the antibodies another way that's a lot safer that doesn't give you COVID, which is the vaccine. So I risk dying or spreading COVID to other people. Cancer isn't a virus. You know what I meant. Anyway. Catching any virus. Okay, guys. Okay, I got it. 2 curbs. Look, okay, 2 curbs. 1 second. Send me your doctorate. You can send me your doctorate in medical science, okay? No? Then you're on board with these people. Anyway. What I'm getting at here is this is complete fucking nonsense. No, why risk pointlessly catching the disease that could kill you and that you can spread to other people when you could just get the vaccine, get those antibodies, and not spread it to other people and not get killed? See, this is where the anti-vaxxer conspiracy theory nonsense has injected itself, unlike the vaccine, into her system. And that's why it makes it so hard for me to believe to a lot of people, because this feels like somebody brought up in chat, a lot of post hoc rationalization, rationalizing what happened after the fact to try to walk back from their conclusion that I don't want to use a vaccine, so I'd much rather, actually catch COVID and build up the antibodies, even though that might kill me, even though it might spread it to other people, even though it puts everybody else at risk. I'd much rather do that, be selfish in that instance, than take the vaccine. If it was just, I can't take the vaccine because I actually know I'm going to have an allergic reaction to this, that's one thing. But this seems like a bunch of ideologically misplaced nonsense.
I remember the last episode I had, I was in my closet, and this is when I knew it was really bad because my thoughts were getting really dark, to where I visualized myself cutting off each hive. So would I risk going back there again for this with this vaccine? I just wouldn't.
I think, again, with your experience of having the vaccines, totally makes sense, but my recommendation would be please don't get it naturally. Do everything you can to even prevent yourself from getting it. And the one thing that you guys haven't seen, unfortunately, I think Jacqueline and I have seen it, the death that
I don't know why she wants to become like a COVID suicide bomb, a kamikaze herself into the disease, possibly killing herself and others. Oh my god, oh my gosh, much rather do that than get the vaccine. Like that's unbelievable to me.
comes with COVID, it's not a romantic death. It's not noble. It's a miserable, gruesome death. And all you can do, not for hours, but for days and weeks, is to sit there and tell every single person that comes into your room, help me, I can't breathe, for weeks and weeks. This virus pushes you so far beyond your limit that you give up. You give up on the one thing that I can't give you medication for. Right. Hope. You give up hope. And your soul gives up the will to live, the will to fight. And I think that's the hardest part to explain to people, that yes, you guys are young, but the problem is this virus needs you to spread.
Well, excuse me, sir. I'm a podcaster, and the other day, somebody in chat told me. Gosh.
And when it spreads, it lands on someone named Daniel, who at 59 loses his life and doesn't get to attend his daughter's wedding, doesn't get to walk her down the aisle. It lands on someone, Evaristo, who's a 61-year-old guy, healthy. His only problem was he went to work.
I hope these
Whole
people are
Foods
having
and he
some
checked
reflection,
people's
though.
temperature. And when he finally died, his thigh was the size of my wrist. No matter what I did, I couldn't stop it. I couldn't help him. And I've had patients where they had it, and they're like, "Well, I had it. It wasn't bad." And they went to see their relative, and their relative ends up, on life support. So I think that's why it's so important to get vaccinated. It's not for yourself. It's for the people that you don't know, but you're going to come into contact with, and you're going to help.
Not getting a vaccine for ideological reasons and not for some genuine medical thing that's been assigned to you by doctored professionals is one of the most selfish things you could possibly do. It is putting your own dumb, whatever ideological beliefs or conspiracy theorist nonsense that you've dug yourself into a rabbit hole about over the health of other people. Herd immunity was not built for idiots on the internet to yell my freedom or say, well, my personal experience is nobody in my family died from COVID, so I don't want to take it. It was built for people who actually physically can't get vaccines. Well, it wasn't. That's what herd immunity is supposed to be for.
Help this virus spread.
But isn't that under the assumption that the vaccination itself somehow stops you from getting COVID, and that's not true?
The vaccination actually...
that's it. It's not. We're three individuals with actually predisposed things. We can't take vaccines. It's just conspiracy theory nonsense. It doesn't stop you from getting COVID. There's still a 5% or whatever percentage chance that you could get it. It's another barrier. The thing is, right? I don't want to get ran over by a car, right? And right now I'm taking multiple precautions to not get run over by a car. I am not in the middle of the road. I am actually far from the road. In fact, I am in a building made of brick and wood and steel support beams. And these are multiple precautions. Does that guarantee I won't be hit by a car? No, multiple cars have gone through buildings and killed people before. But these precautions greatly improve the chances that I will not die from that. And if instead I decided to just wander into the street, I think my odds of getting hit by a car greatly increase.
Both the Pfizer and the Moderna are very successful at...
It was 94%.
Can you still get it? Yes. I have had patients that have had their series of vaccines, and even 2 weeks later, they still get the virus. But even when you get it, it's not as severe. You don't need to get hospitalized. And again, if we can break the cycle where there's less people for this virus to spread, that's what we're looking for in the vaccination.
Also, by the way, not getting your vaccine is not only selfish to the other people who are going to catch COVID, but also extremely selfish to doctors and medical professionals like this man, because what ultimately that will mean is that when those people who don't get the vaccinations are at a higher risk of getting COVID, and then therefore are at a higher risk to actually having to go to hospitals and get treatment by this man as he has to slowly watch you die and watch you infect other people and then decrease the chances of the vaccination actually working. So what this guy is basically arguing to him is like, I shouldn't take the vaccine, and I don't care if I'm at a higher risk to be in your hospital bed as you look at me and have to deal with me as I slowly die. That's what the argument is being made here. It's really disheartening. Even in the face of like medical professionals right across the sea. Like I thought maybe like once these people were no longer like on forum posts on the internet, once they were across from actual like studied medical professionals, they would be acting different. But that does not seem to be the case today, does it?
I guess with me on that, if we're talking about the mortality rate is 0.3%, 0.03%, you know, for who were dying, the survival rate is 99.97.
The death rate is higher than point. It's 1 to 2% actually. The death
1
rate.
to 2%. So if the survival rate is 99.97, how is the death rate?
Not 99.97. Case fatality rates are about in states is about 1%.
Wow, I wonder, should I trust a graph that the people at Jubilee research and put on the screen, or should I trust the doctor and the teacher, or should I trust the dude who introduced himself by saying, "I love life"? Okay, I wonder who should I trust? By the way, I'm starting to question this person's credentials of loving life, because being an anti-vaxxer, I would say, is the anti-life position. Just wanted to throw that out there. And Anna the Nugget, thank you so much for the raid. Oh wow, a little nuggy raid. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I haven't talked to you on stream before. We should talk sometime. I see you're an up and coming. You've been growing pretty fast.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was even a percentage point. What doesn't add up is to take that foreign entity that has so many other things that can affect my body in a negative way that I don't need to put in myself, for what I'm looking at is the percentage of those that when they do get it, this is who may go.
So I see COVID.
Wait, the teacher also mentioned that she worked in healthcare. So all three of these people have worked in healthcare or a medical professional, and one of us is also a teacher. And the other three is a guy who introduced himself as "I love life," a person who introduced himself as a podcaster, so a professional on the issue, and the third person, I forget, purple dyed hair girl, but I know it was not a medical professional.
Patients every day at work. Surviving is different from thriving. I see patients all the time that can't even breathe on their own. The rest of their life, they have to be on oxygen. Sure, they didn't die, but now they can't walk up the stairs without feeling short of
stay-at-home
breath.
mom, yeah.
How many is that?
It's about 30%, and those are not even hospitalized patients. So even people who had mild illness, they develop long haulers.
30%?
Yeah, up to 30%.
I saw all the different age ranges in my house, and nobody has anything.
Well, in my house, everyone survived. Everyone survived. Could you imagine? Let's come on. Look, I don't understand how you could say cancer is this big issue. Like, nobody in my family's ever died from cancer. How could you say car crashes are this big issue? Nobody in my house has ever died from car crashes. How could you say rape is this big issue? Nobody in my family's ever been raped. You could apply this to so many things, right? For example, I can say that none of my family members have died from famine. So I don't know why everybody's talking about it yet. Do you see how ridiculous this is? This mentality makes absolutely no sense. I'm happy you rolled the dice on life and you got really lucky, buddy. You don't need to rub it in the face of literally everyone else. That doesn't mean this isn't an issue. Your personal anecdote does not match up with the hard data. I'm sorry.
Affects people in different ways.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not to take away like, man, that's terrible. But what it can do adversely to me and to others, it's going to be impossible. Do you have
evidence that it's going to do anything adversely to you? No, then get the vaccine, period.
Approach it from your perspective, because I'm not seeing those patients, right? All the things you guys are saying, I don't believe is false at all. That's your experience. Right. But I also know it's like, I told you, I'm going.
No, it's not only their experience compared to your experience. There's not two people with life experience here. Number one, they're medical professionals. When you introduced yourself after they talked about their expertise in the medical industry as, well, I'm just a guy who loves life, and proceeds to show how they have the anti-life position. You also, just to be clear, You brought up an anecdote. They brought up their expertise and actual data, which was then sourced on screen for everybody to see by the people at Jubilee.
Now, week in and week out, seeing those old people for 6-7 months, and we're laughing, partying, dancing together consistently. I can't just shut that off and go, well, the Times said this, and then CNN said this, and only the people in the front lines right when those are dying said this, so that means that's the only truth. I mean, you can hear the frustration.
You know, it's just a lot of political nonsense going on. They're not telling us.
Again with this? It's so political. I don't know why 500,000 people dying has become a political issue. Why is it so political? Yes, fucking people in Nazi Germany invading Poland was political. A car crash is political due to a lack of safety precautions. The drug war, somebody overdosing is political due to the drug war. Yeah, issues today are political. Crises are political. A shooting just occurred in Colorado, 10 people dead. The tragic story, one of them was somebody who had 7 children who died. And you want to know what? It is a political issue. Lack of mental health care, the rate of gun violence in this country. There's a million things we could talk about that is things that we can try to address on a societal level to decrease those types of incidents from occurring. These are political issues. Again, here's a good scenario. A horrible school bus crash happens. None of the kids had seatbelts. The school bus doesn't have seatbelts, kills all the kids. One of the parents comes forward and says, hey, we should really have seatbelts in school buses to save lives. Somebody else stands up, wow, why are you making this horrible tragedy so political? The bodies are still warm. Because when else are we going to talk about it?
What the vaccine is made out of. You know, they're not telling us the side effects. We're hearing about it on Twitter. People, you know, sitting in bed, you know, can't.
Okay. So Twitter. That's a really good. Wait. I love this. So he gets his information from Twitter. Listen to what he says, and then look what comes up on screen.
Political nonsense going on. They're not telling us what the vaccine is made out of. You know, they're not telling us the side effects. We're hearing about it on Twitter. People.
He says, they're not telling us about the side effects, and then the text that comes up on screen, CDC resources on vaccine side effects and description. So it seems that the CDC itself, I don't know if you ever heard of it, actually will give you the resources on side effects. It is not the only resource you can find on side effects. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you Google it, you'll find it, okay? I'm sorry that you scrolled on Twitter and you saw a tweet that was like, I can't believe they didn't tell me the vaccine was gonna give my children autism and gay. And you're like, wow, man, I can't believe it. I gotta talk about this on my podcast. Guys, did you know that the vaccine's gonna give you gay? Here's a Twitter post from like Taco Level 49, expert in the medical industry. You can just Google this stuff. That's a big thing with me. I won't usually give people like crap for not knowing things, but if somebody goes into a talk about this, right, doesn't know something about it, but then like says, why aren't they talking about this when all you could have done is just Google it? That's the stuff that frustrates me more than anything, because all it takes is a simple Google search, and I'm pretty sure the CDC would come up straight away.
You know, sitting in bed, you know, can't get out because they got their body hurt. So for me, it's just like, what is the line about? What's the political agenda about?
It makes you not trust.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
know?
I hear you, and I think
No, well, I don't, because it makes literally no sense. I don't know why he's crossing his arms. I mean, crossing arms is a time for needing comfort. But look, yes, it's political. I mean, I don't know how you expect us to deal with 500,000 people dying without like a political solution. I don't know. What would you have Joe Biden? Should Joe Biden say, wow, guys, I can't believe you're making this political. Just eat your vegetables. What do you want him to do? He has to have a solution. Politicians need to work to solve this issue.
what's always attracted me to medicine, you have to make your decisions based on facts. Not fear, not speculation, not political agendas. But the truth of it was, when this started in March, a lot of my friends started asking me because they said, oh, there's going to be a vaccine. And I'm like, there's going to be a vaccine? It's going to take at least 2 years.
Yep.
The earliest that we had developed a vaccine before was 4 years. But then in the summertime...
Chibi said there's a long history of distrust between doctors and people of color. You have to understand some of the hesitancy. Yeah. I mean, I just talked about recently, like, the history of Henrietta Lacks and her and the stealing of her cells and the lack of compensation and the horrible treatment of patients by Johns Hopkins. That I'm a Maryland resident, so this stuff was like drilled to me since I was a kid. And I completely understand that. but this is undisputable scientific consensus. So I understand that there's hesitation there, but this is also somebody who's coming here to have this conversation, who says they're a podcaster and they probably like talk these types of issues, right? And they've taken up the position of being anti-vax. I feel like this person said, like, you can't get this information. They're not telling us this, when they're actively telling you that. Whether he's hesitant or not does not change the fact that the CDC is being public with the side effects of vaccines, and multiple other medical institutions. They are being open with it. So his claim that they're not is completely untrue.
It actually went through phase 1 and phase 2, and then it went into started getting phase 3. And the reason why it was actually able to get done within a year period is because, one, they cut all the red tape, because there's a lot of bureaucracy, but then there was also a tremendous amount of collaboration between countries. So I posted when I got my vaccine in December, and some of my friends called me and they're like, you said it wasn't going to be available, and you said also, when it becomes available, you're going to wait 3 to 6 months to get it. What made you change your mind? I said, listen, over this past year, I have seen what this virus can do to people.
The reason why you don't know the side effects is because it is a not fully FDA approved vaccination, right? You're putting your faith into something because you know and have trusted a variety of other vaccinations over the course of the years. And you know and you trust the steps and the stages that these different companies went through in order to eliminate a virus that is running rampant over the world.
I think one of the things that really hasn't been publicized is the quote-unquote side effects. The vaccine, the Pfizer and the Moderna, are 2 shots. So the first shot is just to get your immune system kind of used to it, and the second shot is a booster. So the symptoms that you get, the headache, the body aches, the low-grade fever, that's actually not a side effect. That's your immune system working, and they go away. I understand that, you know, you had a horrible response and it was much more severe, but for the vast majority of people, we've already vaccinated over 100 million people across the globe. So I think if there was anything more serious, it would have come out.
Well, then there's...
It isn't fully approved. As far as, I think this is an old recorded video. Like, they uploaded it recently, but I think they may have recorded this a while ago. I'm unsure.
I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen videos, and there are people who are saying, I'm a nurse, I did this, now the side of their face is flat. Or they're...
That literally means nothing. I'm sorry, but Twitter... Okay, 1 second. Okay, look, this is how easy it is to make one of those videos. Hello, everybody. My name is Bagingi the 7th, and I am the president of health. And I would like to tell you that if you touch mushrooms, your dick will fall off. President of health. I'm telling you the medical reality. That's how easy it is to make one of those videos, okay? And just because somebody works in a field doesn't mean that necessarily they're correct about everything they say about health. What you do, what you do here, is you look at the vast majority of what medical professionals or professionals in the field are saying, along with the evidence, which lines up with you should get a vaccine.
They're shaking all day. When you see and you look up and you're online and that information, that stuff gets censored and taken off YouTube, taken off Instagram, taken off Facebook. Like it raises that. If you look at like Tuskegee experiment, they sat there and shot up a bunch of black men with tuberculosis or with syphilis. Sorry, they didn't say anything, and they've been doing this consistently. We can talk about like
smallpox blankets,
right? And it's like
another example you could bring up is Henrietta Lacks, like I brought up earlier. Like, yeah, the black community has been abused by the medical community in this country, used for experimentation for years. I remember I was having a conversation with a conservative recently in the most recent roundtable I was on, and they were like, these things that they did to other countries, these minority groups with medical experimentation, we don't do that. And I was like, ever heard of Henrietta Lacks, Tuskegee, any of these things? And that is 100% true, which is, but let's realize that the fear between the history, which is 100% true, doesn't mean that we should just ignore all medical science. Because the thing is, even if those things did happen, this is something that is being applied to the vast majority of all Americans, number one, not just the black community. And number two, that the knowledge on syphilis was known. The knowledge on these diseases that were being used to see the progression of these diseases in Black people weren't known. They were just trying to experiment more about that. The goal there wasn't to treat Black people or treat people. The goal there was to watch the progression of the disease, where the goal of the vaccine here is to actually treat this disease. And it's undisputable evidence across multiple countries, multiple continents, including the African continent, that this is something that works. This is something that is proven, and this is something that will help decrease extremely the chances of you getting COVID-19. Hey, I saw your appearance last night. Hope you're cool. Hope you're good, buddy. Hey, big bouncy, bro. I appreciate that.
We've seen what they've done, and then when you see people get censored for having a different opinion on this stuff over the last 10 months, it makes it that much harder that when they say take the vaccination, I'll be damned to listen to them. I'm not saying you're a liar. I'm not saying you're a liar. I'm not saying you're a liar, but I'm like, you're also.
I mean, if they're telling you incorrect things, then yes, they would be a liar. So you kind of are, but let's remember here, just because somebody got removed off of Twitter doesn't mean they had to say they were saying something of note, right? People a lot of times get removed off of Twitter for literally saying complete nonsense. Like the president of the United States, former president of the United States, Donald Trump, said a lot of nonsense on Twitter. And just because they were marked with a "this is nonsense" tag doesn't mean like, maybe this is the real truth. Or maybe it's just nonsense. Now, I understand the state stepping in and trying to suppress information, suppress stuff. That's concerning. A lot of times. But you would have to provide me with evidence that the stuff that's being taken down is actually truthful information, which has not been provided whatsoever. So it seems like, from where I'm standing, just the removal of disinformation from different social media websites.
Also saying the same thing, the same people who I've seen show us get shot on TV like it's a sport.
Right.
Like, what is that doing to the psyche of our country? It's still coming from these people or from a group that you go,
You don't have confidence in them.
Okay, number one, I don't know what he means by these people, like the media. Then he said, like, let's go back. Let's hear that again. I'm very confused what he means by these people. Like, does he mean like a group of elites? Like,
you're also saying the same thing, the same people who I've seen show us get shot on TV like it's a sport.
Right.
Like, what is that doing to the psyche of our country? It's still coming from these people or from a group that you go,
You don't have
I don't know, like, what group is he talking about? Like the elites? Like, I just don't know.
confidence in them.
you know?
And I think that's the biggest issue is the lack of transparency and trust, right? I don't think they're doing it anymore, but remember they came out and it was like, oh, we'll pay people $1,500 to take the vaccine. But isn't this the same government that every time we need a stimulus check, they can't come up with a deal, but they're willing to pay for it? Again, it just looks fishy. It smells fishy. They're not telling us anything. Can I ask you a question? So let's say everybody got the vaccine. What happens? Do we just go back to work, go back to the gyms, go back to school? Like, unless the vaccine works 100%, if we all take it, I mean, what happens? Like, do we go back to normal? Do we still got to wear the face mask and social distance?
Well, to continue to wear masks because there are people that aren't going to be vaccinated. Yeah. And there are people that are going to continue to spread COVID-19 because
like these people. What?
That's just what viruses do. They spread. And we're not going back to normal. We're going to go to some new variation. We're going to have our own variant of normalcy. And we're creating those things right now as we do the process and opening back up. I know that my district is planning to do soft open. You still have to be aware, though, that these kids, they don't have a vaccine. So, my students are coming back into the classroom. Are they going to be passing it to each other? Because guess what? A lot of them have had COVID over this break.
You asked a really good question. This is like, if everyone in America gets vaccinated.
By the way, like, even if we don't go back to normal, or even, okay, the thing is, what answer here would make it so it'd be bad to take the vaccine? Answer one is we don't go back to normal. Well, then you should still take the vaccine because it reduces your chances of getting COVID and makes everybody safer. And let's say we do go back to normal once taking the vaccine. Well, then good, the vaccine helps us return to normal. So I don't understand the point of the question if both answers lead to the same conclusion that you should take the vaccine. I guess just to know like what's probably going to happen, but yeah, it doesn't. No matter what answer this person was going to get, the correct conclusion should still be, oh damn, I should get the vaccine.
Vaccinated, as things go back to normal. And I think the honest truth is we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. Now this one, the mortality rate is like 1% to 2%, maybe a little bit lower. But what if the variants come up to 10%, 15%? Now, that's a game changer. What if it gets to be like Ebola, where it kills 40% of the people? This virus is just so tricky, so elusive, it just changes so much. This is an evolving pandemic. It's like nothing that we had ever seen before. I think they should just be honest.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to saying, well, this is what you need to do so we can open the schools. Just be honest.
The COVID-19 restrictions have been necessary.
I mean, I guess.
Peer
And
pressure.
everybody was hesitant to get up there.
I think it has been necessary. When we look at how it's passed around, right, the gym. I love the gym. I used to live in the gym. And I know there's a chance that people don't wipe off after their equipment. People don't wash their hands in the bathroom. You know, so I think the restrictions
Oh, my
have
answer
been
would also
necessary.
be yes,
Because
by the way, if
we
anybody
didn't
was
close
actually
down, people
wondering.
would still be at the beaches having a good old time. We needed some type of structure to make us do it. Because if the government just said,
We've seen
you know,
how
it's up
events
to
like
you,
Sturgis
just
will
stay home.
actually like have COVID
People
spikes.
don't even
So
do
yes,
it now.
Yeah,
And
this is
I mean,
this is necessary.
if we get another shutdown, it might be necessary, who knows? But I think for the time being, it has helped to slow the spread of COVID.
In regards to the shutdown, for my students, it's put them into a whole other state of mind, actually, in terms of their ability to communicate with people and with each other. It was like something had triggered because they were doing okay before, and then all of a sudden, they just shut down. That's a big concern of mine. The shutdown is a little bit long and possibly could have been staggered or altered in different ways. Like, okay, let's open, and then during those times of the fall, winter, season, perhaps maybe we can, close it back down for the 2 to 3 weeks.
I think initially, when we didn't know what was going on, like, hey, I mean, I was riding around with a mask on, but then we started finding out.
Wait. Is he saying that, like, man, even I was walking around with that, like, he doesn't wear a mask anymore? Like, now he's decided we don't no longer need to wear a mask. Now that I've seen everything go down, there's, like, he was wearing a mask. Like, oh, back in the day, even I was a dumb libtard who was wearing a mask. Well, this guy has consistently had the worst takes out of the whole group of people here. What? Oh, please, I'd love to hear your logic for why now you don't need to wear a mask. I would love to hear this.
That was my problem. Like my local restaurant my buddy owns is shut down, but I get on a flight from here to Chicago with strangers I don't know completely fine. That doesn't make sense to me. I think it's the basis of what this country is about. It's your decision.
Yeah, we would want it to be up to the individual person. Why do I have to take all of these restrictions on my body if A, I'm taking care of my health, and B, I'm being smart about how I interact, I spend money on all of those green vegan meals, and I'm like, I'm not doing all of this work for nothing. I don't know, it feels really interesting because I feel like I am the only one in the people I know that is like, I'm not gonna wear a mask and like, I'm not afraid of COVID, but I'm not going to the clubs. You know what I mean? Right. And I feel like sometimes when we think of people that don't wear masks, you just assume that they're out there throwing parties, but it's like, right. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like sometimes we're generalizing and throwing people into these boxes and then making these big assumptions. Then that creates this sense of fear, because then I'm gonna be thinking like, well, you have it, and you have it, and you have it, because you're not wearing a mask.
I think the issue I'm having is I'm not trying to label all non-mask wearers as just criminals and they should be locked up. But I remember Bow Wow had a concert in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and you see videos and pictures of people just, it just smells hot. All those people in that club packed together like sardines. Somebody has COVID. They either pass it along or they take it home.
Yeah.
See, like that whole thing, like I can't get on board with that because it's all still based on fear. It's also
who cares? Okay, look, I understand, like, I understand your objection to fear because it could like make people live in a way that they don't necessarily need to. But if the data shows that getting in closed spaces could increase your chances to get the COVID, and being close to all these other people without wearing masks, and we see like a huge group of people doing that and saying like, that doesn't look good, that looks like some COVID shit to me, then you're just being truthful. I don't care if it is, at the end of the day, I care more about being truthful necessarily than inspiring fear. I'd like to just not inspire fear and people just act responsibly and normally to the situation. But why is it hyper-focusing on, ooh, what if we inspire fear? I'd really hate for people to be fearful. That would be terrible. Why are we hyper-focusing on that? What's the point? Could you imagine? I'm in Poland, and there's German bombers overhead, and boom, the house next to me just blew up. Boom, the bomb next to me just blew up, and I'm just sitting there like, I'd leave, because that's a smart thing to do, but I just don't want to live in fear. I don't want to let this invading army control my life. So I'm just gonna sit here. Like, there's a million scenarios we could think up of where there's a situation where something dangerous is happening, and this logic applied would just mean you just don't do anything to react to save lives and have people survive.
Based on like, well, because you said you saw the party, that means somebody got sick. And I'm like,
You're in Poland right now, there's no German bombers? Depends on what part of Poland.
I'm seeing the people that bought in like 100% then come out and then something happens. And it's like, well, you were locked up. You weren't getting sun. You weren't doing things. You weren't interacting. Like, that blows my mind. That made us weaker.
That's not the case with the lockdown.
No. Lockdowns have done worse in the cities and in the states than the ones that have less lockdowns.
But then we had a third wave that was way worse because there wasn't a lockdown. The restaurants were open. I know because I wasn't there, but friends were inviting me to go, let's go out and eat. And then their third wave came, and that's when the shutdown happened in November. And so I don't agree with the lockdowns create more viruses. They actually stop them because obviously we're not seeing.
It doesn't add up.
You saw the numbers drop in the hospitals as that shutdown happened. And that's why we're back in this whole open up again.
Yeah, so I believe the lockdown was really necessary. I think the first wave, it was kind of controlled. We only had one medical surgical floor that had COVID. And then the third surge with Halloween, Christmas, New Year's, we had 4 floors that were all for COVID. So people were just laying in a room bagged up because the morgue is full. And that's taking away a potential bed for another patient.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lockdown we had in March and April was a strict lockdown. You would see 4 cars in the 101.
That was LA, you could drive around.
Yeah.
Do you know what's scary? Like, actually hearing the words, the morgue is full, we can't take another. If there's anything that makes me sound like a crisis has gotten out of hand, it is those words.
I mean, that was extended for a couple of months, and I think we all agreed that was a little too long, but we didn't really have those types of lockdowns again. I remember vividly coming home before Thanksgiving and telling my wife, I'm like, this is gonna get really bad. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I just drove on the 101 and it was in rush hour traffic. It felt like last year before, it felt like no one really believes that there's this pandemic again. Within a 3-week span, we went from 15 to 20 to 120 patients with COVID. And unfortunately, you know, it cost a lot of lives. We lost 10,000 people in LA County from March to December 31st.
So those are some hard data. That's some hard data, Mr. Doctor. But did you ever consider the idea that Billy Bob went to the store without a mask and Billy Bob is still alive? You ever consider that? I mean, all that data and all those examples and all of that is true and all. But I know Billy Bob and he didn't wear a mask and he's not dead. So, guess COVID isn't a real problem. You ever think about that, Doctor Bucko?
In 2021, we've lost another 37,000. Right? 10,000 all of last year from COVID, 37 just in a month and a half of 2021. If we would have had strict lockdowns for 2 weeks around the Christmas, around New Year's, if they would have done that, I think we would have cut down on the deaths.
I think conversation is the most important way to solve a problem. We can be actually the virus.
Actually, I don't even know. I don't even know anymore. I think, you know what? I like conversation. I like talking about stuff like this. But hearing stuff like this makes me really, really rethink like the idea of like giving certain people platforms when it comes to spreading disinformation and ideas that aren't necessarily popular. But if they got popular enough by us giving them attention, this is making me rethink a few of my things, okay? This really is. This is making me rethink a few of my positions, actually.
Right, and we can interject some healing for ourselves.
Broken a little bit of my
for
faith
our
in the
students,
free
our
market of
future,
ideas.
Because we want to know what the perspectives are and how people are feeling. That helps to solve the problem.
Yeah, I feel like you have to come from a genuine place where you want to know the truth. And that might make you feel uncomfortable. That might be different from what you were holding on to. But if you're going to go into it already feeling like, well, I already know I'm right, and I'm just going to find more articles to support that thought, then you're just right back at square one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I was hesitant too when I got offered to get the vaccine at my hospital. They're like, okay, here's a sign-up sheet. Do you want to get the vaccine, yes or no? I'm like, well, I don't know what's in it. I don't know how is it administered. So I had to do my own research, and for me, I thought me getting the vaccine benefited me more. Like, I'd rather get a headache than have some other COVID-19.
You know what I want to do when all this COVID stuff is over? What I really, really want to do, and even if it's not all over, but when it dies down more, I want to go to an aquarium. I really want to see some fish in a tank. I don't know why. I just really want to go to an aquarium. I've been on this aquarium jump for a while now. I just want to see a bunch of fish in a big old tank. Some little sharks and stuff. That'd be cool. I'd go to Baltimore Aquarium, of course. Right. Wait, I should stream it. I should go to Baltimore Aquarium and stream it. That'd be cool.
And you know, for me, coming into this conversation, right, I was skeptical of the vaccine, but I came into it to see what else can I learn? Because I think as people, all we could do is sit back, take a deep breath, and look at each other and say, how can we do better? What can we learn? Get out of your box. Because if we don't, we're going to be stuck in this situation forever.
It's going to be terrible, man. It's going to be terrible. This is what's important. I'd rather talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's be clear. The doctors gain nothing of value here. They just basically just spent a session teaching this person about COVID. So maybe if he didn't gain anything out of this, then nothing was gained. For these people, the audience gained something out of it. What the audience gained was what the doctors were saying, what the doctors gave. Because I think anybody approaching this from a rational point of view, with any two brain cells to rub together, would walk away from this saying the doctors made good points, the doctors are professionals, the doctor had data. Jubilee also provided the statistical data on screen for me. They linked it in the description. Okay, I should get a vaccine.
I'd rather talk to you, which opens it up. Maybe just a little bit more than it would have, right? But it opens it up. This is the key. This has always been the key.
Yeah.
This is the answer.
So we can do this together, folks. I really believe it.
There's no combination.
Only if you get a vaccine, buddy, okay? Look, you think you can do it, but you're not allowed in my home if you're not getting a vaccine, buddy, okay? You can do this on your own, okay? Because you've decided not to join the herd when it comes to herd immunity, okay? So you are actually doing it on your own. So don't pretend this is like we're all in this together when you specifically have said, nah, I'm good on doing it together.
Of words or phrases that I can tell you guys, which would give you an accurate picture of the amount of human misery.
Isn't it my body, my choice? You know what? You're right. And my body would like to not even be impacted by you not getting a vaccine and undermining herd immunity. So my body is my choice to not be killed by your dumbass, okay? That's me applying my belief of my body, my choice. The thing is, if it was just these individuals being killed by nobody else, then maybe we could have a different discussion about this. But at the end of the day, people not taking vaccinations impacts literally everyone. It impacts me, it impacts you, it impacts everyone.
And grief and suffering that we have witnessed in the past year, but specifically the past 2 months. But I'm going to stay an optimist, and I'm going to hope that we're going to get over this pandemic. We're going to come together. At the end of all this, we live on one planet.
Yep.
And what happens in Wuhan, China, will affect you whether you live in Wichita, Kansas, or Washington, D.C.
Globalism.
So my hope is that we can come together and stop looking out for ourselves, but look out for everyone else.
Yeah, man.
Are we allowed to shake hands? Are we allowed to hug?
On my elbow.
It's up to whoever
Negative,
else,
right?
but I'm here.
Don't touch me.
Anyway, I heard that Krispy Kreme is giving out free donuts every day to people that can show proof of vaccination. Just another good reason to get vaccinated. Hell yeah. Dope. Oh, and everybody watching on the YouTube channel, remember to subscribe, like, comment, and devote your every breathing moment to watching Dylan Burns TV content, okay? There you go. Let's God. This really destroys my faith. This really, really destroys my faith. And the idea that that these conversations are worthwhile sometimes, man. Because I don't know if what this did was actually more helpful or hurtful, generally. I think the most shocking part is when Salaka said, that's it, when the doctor said 30% of patients have severe symptoms. This 30% is probably more than 200,000 people, and even the mortality being 1.8% on 30 million people, that percentage is too high. All I can see is Saika and Irika is selfishness. They refuse to acknowledge the pain of others, and they stick to not affecting me is not my problem. Well, yeah, they did it completely anecdote Andes, so it 100% was not me, not my problem, not my family. Fuck you. That basically is what it equated to. I mean, we could try to pretend that's not what it was, but 100% is what it was. Come on.